Hello, hi, hey. Um, I wanted to talk to you guys this afternoon about a few things that crossed my mind that sparked my inspiration. I call it How to Create Money Out of Thin Air. A few caveats that I want to talk about before we begin. And first, no way, shape, or form do I mean to degrade poor people or I want to appear to be without compassion for their situation. I do not believe that rich people are better than poor people. I just believe that they're richer. And at the same time, I want to make sure that, I get my point across, that you get the message. So I'm going to be make some very distinct differences between the rich and poor as extreme as possible. Okay. Second, when I discuss rich, poor, middle class people, what I'm referring to is their mentality, how different folks think and act rather than the actual amount of money that they have or the value that they have to society. Third, I will be generalizing big time. I understand not all rich, not all poor people are the way that I'm describing them to be. And again, my objective here is to make sure that I get my point across about how, rich people think, poor people think, middle class people think. Fourth, for the most part, I will not always be referring to the middle class specifically because the middle class people usually have a mix of rich and poor mentalities. Again, the goal is for you to become aware of how you can create more wealth. And fifth, several of the principles in this section may appear to deal more with habits and actions um, than ways of thinking. Remember, our actions come from our feelings, which come from our thoughts. Consequently, every rich action is preceded by a rich way of thinking. And finally, I'm going to ask you to be willing to let go of being right. Uh, what I mean by that is be willing to let go of your way of thinking just for a moment and just explore some of these ideas. If you reject them, that's totally fine. So, this is my 2020 guide of how to create money out of thin air by James Washington. And my why. I made this program for mothers who work hard every day of their life to take care of their children and who want to get ahead. I made it for fathers who've been given a short stick in life and know that there's something better and it's coming soon. I made this for children whose mothers and fathers send them away to school or to work for a better life because they can't provide one for them with their current know how. And I made this video especially for you, the individual right now who is viewing it, so you can get more out of life. And in my humblest gratitude and sincerity, thank you for your time and your attention. I know those are your two most valuable possessions. So we're going to jump right into it. Your money blueprint. Why you are exactly where you are and exactly who you are. We live in a world of dualities. We have up and down, we have left and right, we have cause and effect. Just like we have up and down, left and right, we have outer laws and inner laws of success. And, you know, the outer laws would be like fruit, your work skills, your, you know, the way that you manage your money. Um, on the outside, inner laws would be knowledge, beliefs, understanding, and consequently, your time and your attention are your two most valuable possessions. So we're going to touch on what you spend your time and attention on a lot. You know, have you ever heard of people who have blown up financially? And have you noticed how some people have a lot of money and then lose it? Or some people have excellent opportunities that start off well, but things go sour? I want you to know the real cause. On the outside, it looks like bad luck, a downturn, political parties, the economy, uh, a lousy partner, you know, but that on the inside is really a whole nother matter. If you come into big money and you're not ready for it, chances are you're going to lose it, probably quick. And likewise, if um, you're ready for money and you don't have it, you'll find a way to get it. Kind of works in a duality that way as well. For the vast majority of people, they just don't have the internal capacity to create and hold large amounts of money, and the increased challenges that go along with money and success. That's the primary reason most people don't have a lot of money. Like, it's been proven time and time again, like with lottery winners. Lottery winners oftentimes win the lottery and go for 5, 10, 20 years living this extravagant life, but they can't maintain it. They often end up right back where they started. And then you look at somebody like Bodrick Steve Harvey. You know him as Steve Harvey. Uh, he came from mediocre success and continues to rise and rise and rise. Um, you have to look at the roots. Let's talk about the roots on a plant. If you have a strong root system in a plant or a tree, you can chop the top off and the root system would regenerate another plant if it's strong and it's healthy. So if you want nice fruit, should you water the fruit or should you water the roots? You know? And then you have nature versus nurture. Nature is what you were born with, the gifts that God gave you. And nurture is everything that happened after that, human interactions, um, interactions with environment. Those things all shape and change us into the people that we become. If you want to change your fruits, you will first have to change the roots. As humans, we are part of nature. We're not above it. And consequently, when we align with the laws of nature and we work on our roots, our inner world, our life flows smoothly. When we don't, life get rough, and you know, that's when we start having these problems. And it may appear on the surface to be surface problems, but in actuality, it's something that's going on the inside all the time, 100% of the time. It's always that. You cannot change the fruits that's already hanging on your tree, but you can, however, change tomorrow's fruit. But to do so, you will have to dig deep below the ground and strengthen your roots. So if you want to change the visible, you must first change the invisible. It's seeing, truly believing. What's more powerful, the visible or the invisible? So you can't see electricity, right? But if you touch 440 volts, I assure you, you'll feel it. So you can't see that, but it's probably going to kill you. So what you can't see probably can kill you. So the most important thing that I've learned to understand is that I live in, and most of us live in four planes of existence at one time. We have our mental world, we have our emotional world, we have our spiritual world, and those three things print out into our physical world. Okay. Um, the physical world is the fruit. Okay. So let's give a good example. Let's say I print something out from the computer, right? And I type it into Microsoft Word, I print it out, and then once I print it out, I realize there's an error on it. So I get an erase and I erase the error off. I'm like, all right, problem solved, right? That's me solving it in the physical. Um, but then I go back, I print it out again, and I'm like, oh my God, look, it's the same thing. I just erased it. So then I go and I study YouTube, and then I buy a book, I read it. I spend, 3 hours figuring out how to effectively erase. And, I'm ready again, and I go at it again, and then boom, I print it out, and it's like I'm in the twilight zone. The printout is still showing this error. The problem is that I didn't change it inside of the program. I kept trying to change it in the physical world. So if you want to change what's going on in the physical world, you have to change the programming. So money is a result. Wealth is a result. Health is a result. Illness is a result. We live in a world of cause and effect. The real problem with men and women is that they simply don't think. So your financial blueprint consists of a combination of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and the area of money exclusively. Okay. So that's what we're focusing on. So don't get lost in the woods here. So how is your money blueprint formed? The answer is simple. You have a financial blueprint that consists of primarily information or programming that you received in the past, especially when you were a young child. Um, the primary sources of programming can be, or conditioning, can be, parents, siblings, friends, authority figures, teachers, religious leaders, media, and your culture, to name a few. So let's talk about culture. Isn't it true that some cultures have a different way of looking at money and problems associated with that? And then we have some cultures that have, you know, not so positive ways of looking at money and a way to deal with that. And I'm not going to elaborate there, but you could look at me and tell I've had some experiences with um, different cultures and individuals in all these cultures that have different ways of looking at the same problem. Every child is taught how to think about and act in relation to money. You don't just come out the womb saying that, I'm gonna be a millionaire, like, boom, like, hey, sign here. It just doesn't happen that way. So your programming leads to your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your actions. Therefore, just like a personal computer, the only way of changing your programming is to first take the essential steps um, and looking at where they come from. So a few places that it comes from, we're going to talk about three today. All right. The first one we're going to talk about is verbal programming. So verbal programming is what you have heard verbally. Money doesn't grow on trees. You can't be rich and spiritual. Money doesn't buy happiness. Money talks. The rich get richer. The poor get poorer. That's not for people like us. Not everyone can be rich. There's never enough, and the infamous, we can't afford it. Did you ever hear phrases like money is the root of all evil? Save your money for a rainy day. Rich people are greedy. Oh. Rich people are criminals. Filthy rich. I kind of like that one. You have to work hard to make money. I hate that one. Why do you want to have money if all these things are true? If you had to be evil to have money, I wouldn't want to be rich. Okay. So there are four elements of change, each of which is essential in reprogramming your financial blueprint. They're simple, but they're profoundly powerful. The first element of change is awareness. The second element of change is understanding. The third is disassociation. And the fourth would be a new understanding, um, new programming. Um, so let's talk a little bit about that. The first element of change is awareness. You can't change something unless you're aware of that it exists. The second element is understanding. By understanding where your way of thinking originates, you can recognize that it has come from outside of you and not from internally. The third element of change is disassociation. Once you realize that your way of thinking isn't you, you can separate from it and choose something that's more supportive in the present. And the fourth is a new understanding. Those are going to be the acquired wealth principles that we're going to talk about. So when the subconscious mind has to choose between deeply rooted emotions and logic, emotions almost always win. The second way we are conditioned is called modeling. What were your parents or guardians like in the area of money when you were growing up? Did one or both of them manage their money well, or did they mismanage it? Were they spenders? Were they shrewd savers and investors, or non-investors? Or were they risk takers? It's important to understand what you've seen growing up, because the human mammal is just an animal, okay? And monkey see, monkey do. You know, you have really two options. You can conform or rebel. It's really only two options you can pick in a situation like that. Many people who come from poor families become angry and rebellious about it. Often they either go out and become extremely rich. I've seen that. I, or they at least have the motivation to do so. Sometimes they get caught up in the whole rebellious of being like, I don't want to be poor, and they start attaching negative emotions to money. So they start having fear, fear of being poor, anger at their parents for not taking the same steps that they took, rebellion, where they want to rebel against the authority figures or the public figures or the religions that they felt held them back, and lusting over money and power and success. All these are negative sources to draw energy from when obtaining money, because you'll never actually truly be happy if you have fear tied to your money. Like, you're so scared that you're going to become poor one day that all you do is work. I dealt with that personally. Anger, I dealt with that one too, as far as my relationship with money. um, Rebellion, all these things come up, and they can actually sabotage you from wanting to obtain money, because you start tying in, money with fear, and consequently money becomes a bad thing, and you don't even want to keep it, especially if you're getting it in the wrong ways by destroying other people's lives. That's definitely something. All right, so next, let's discuss, um, not as an individual, but your relationship with others, family and friends. Um, does your partner understand why you have this way of thinking about money? What do your friends think about money? How do they obtain it? You should create a list of these attitudes with regards to money and success, and figure out who actually is supportive of that, of your new financial blueprint, and um, which ones aren't. And then you can decide how well or how little or how much you want to deal with those individuals in those areas. So, all this talk about money. What the feezies is money? So, I have this exercise where I take and I burn a $20 bill. And the reason I do that is because I want to disassociate myself with the paper form of money. Okay? It's a trap. Um, the first time I did that, I don't know where I got the idea from. I have no idea, but I burnt it. I was in Houston, Texas. I burnt the money, and this was the first time I realized that the stuff was paper. It's not even real. It's not even real. It's a representation of something real that you've done, or something that you've earned, or a position that you're in, or something that you own. Um, which leads me over to the barter system. Honestly, you can cut this video off right now if you just go learn the barter system. Honestly. But we're going to elaborate a little bit on that more in the second half of this. Um, and then there's the money system that we're under right now, that most people are under, which is a representation of the barter system, with all the caveats in it. And a lot of other people have hacked the money system. The money system is easy to hack. So I'll tell you about the the $1,600 story. And I'm going to go real quick. So me and my now wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, we were in Houston, Texas. We were going to school, and we were taking out government grants and student loans, and that's what we were living off of. While I worked and built up, we had an online retail business, Leather So Soft Houston. And so with the online retail business, we were building it up, building up websites and everything, but we were broke. We were poor. But we had some belts, we had purses, we had all this inventory that we invested in with our working capital. I think I was working at Power Electric at that time, which was like a electrical switch box company, whatever. Anyway, so we get the $1,700 check, we cash it, we get $100 out of it. One of her friends is like, "Oh, we gotta go. You gotta come down to see Kiati. You gotta come see Kiati. He's having a show on the north side of Houston, and we want y'all to come and all this." Blah. So we go out there, right? Boom. We head out there. We get to the place. We do our thing. All right. We head home. We didn't want to go. We were tired. We had a few drinks. We head back home, and she had a jacket, and it was real like slippery material, and the money was folded up in the envelope, and the money some kind of way slipped out. $1,600. Why the heck did we have $1,600 while we were going out to the north side of Houston? I have no idea. But anyway, we were flat broke. At the time, I think Quan was 5 or 6. I have a 5 or 6 year old son at the time. And so we needed that money. And we had all this inventory. The website wasn't finished, or it wasn't producing the way we should have. We built it on Yahoo Store and all this kind of fun stuff. And so, you know, I ended up being depressed for a couple of days. She was depressed for like a week. And we just, were just, she just laid in the bed like she didn't want to do anything and everything. And then I said, you know what? I got this inventory. I guess I got to go make it happen. So that was my first lesson of value. You know, money represents value. It's not valuable itself. So I went out there. I had my little belts. I went out for the first time with the intent of I'm not going home unless I have all these belts sold. And I sold $900 worth of belts. Okay, it was like 30, 40 belts. I sold it in like 36 hours. It's the first time I had that eye of the tiger. I had to come back with it. And on that level, it was like, like we weren't going to eat. And and I came back with it and I was like, man, we don't even need the online store. I could go do this every weekend. But that's the moral of the story was is that the things that I did for other people is what brought the value in that I needed, not the loans or not the fact that it was $1,600. All right, so most of us believe that we are running off a choice. That's how we run in our lives. But in all due honesty, we only make a few choices on true choices on a daily basis. Most of us are just running off of past old habits and conditioning like robots. So the only way to permanently change the temperature in a room is to reset the thermostat. In the same way, the only way to change your level of financial success permanently is to reset your financial thermostat. So you have to step out of the victim mentality, take possession of your conscious mind, get out the real life matrix, the images on TV, radio, social media, and print media. And the truth about the 9 to 5 is that, it was made by labor unions in the 1800s. And then it was Mr. Henry Ford in 1920. His organization really made it popular. And it's something that's not even 200 or 300 years old. It's a very new idea. Um, and you don't have to work in the 9 to 5 to be quote unquote stable or successful. So I saw this on Facebook. I wanted to include it in the slides. Tradition. Tradition is peer pressure from dead people. Okay, I like that. You can try anything and everything you want. You can develop your knowledge in business and marketing and sales and negotiation and time management. You can become an expert at real estate or the stock market or insurance, um, online marketing. You could come and make all these tremendous tools, but without mastering the inner game, you're gonna really just be wasting your time. Consciousness is observing your thoughts and actions so that you can live from true choice in the present moment rather than being run by past programming. So imagine a ship with a captain, a map, a crew, and it knows where it's going. Then imagine a ship with no captain, no map, no crew, and it doesn't know where it's going. You start the motors off at the dock. Which one is going to make it to their destination first? Well, of course, you know the answer to that. Um, the one with no captain, no map, and no crew probably won't even make it out the docks because it's going nowhere. So you have to know where you're going. You have to develop a number in your head. My number is $7 million. That's $27,700 a day for 252 days a year. I only want to work 252 days a year. But if I make $27,700 a day, I'll make about $7 million a year. And I plan on doing that. The third influence is specific instances or incidents. Was money consistent or was the flow sporadic in your household growing up? Did money come easy for your family or was it always a struggle? Was money a source of joy in your house or was it the cause of bitter arguments? The first time you obtained money, how did you do it? And the first time you needed money, why did you need it? These things shape the way that we think and view the world. You know, so let's think back about how you felt emotionally. How did you obtain money the first time you got it? Was it working for your friends? Was it working for family members? Was it a total stranger? Was it a system like Social Security, disability, trust fund? Um, how hard was it to obtain? What was everybody else doing while you were obtaining money? These things shape the way that we view money and our relationship to it. So let me tell you the two stories. All right. So we got the first time I needed money, the 12-year-old barber from Walnut Square. And there's a little picture of me right there when I was 12 years old. Um, and I always wanted to keep my hair cut a certain way. And I couldn't afford to get the, $12 haircuts every week, $10 plus $2 tips. I couldn't afford the $10 haircuts every week from the professional barbers. So, I saved up some money from my allowances and my flat top pops I was selling at school. And I went out and I brought some clippers and I started cutting my brother's hair. And I also started cutting the kids in the neighborhood hair. And the kids in the neighborhood, I was cutting their hair. And as I was cutting their hair, I started charging them money. So I had Wayne Head, I had a few other people in the neighborhood, Jason, and I would literally cut their hair on Saturdays, and I would have people sitting on the steps. They would get money from their parents to come pay me to cut their hair because they had the same problem. And I knew the barber charged $12, so I charged $3 to $5. I didn't have any lining clippers or anything. And then the first time I needed money, I had a baby early on in life. I had a baby, you know, she's not my wife, but my girlfriend at the time. I got her pregnant when I was 15, and I had a baby when I was 16. So my mom said thought I was grown, so we didn't see eye to eye on some things. So I was a homeless 11th grader, and I had a full-time job at KFC. And at KFC, I was uh, a chef, a cook at first, and then a chef supervisor, trainee for like a year, and I was making $5.35, I believe. Um, and I had to go. I went to McMain, and that it kind of shaped the way that I look at money even today. Um, hey Joyce, you all in my video. All right. So, what is your money blueprint set for? That's easy. How much money do you currently make, and how much do you have in the bank? Dun, 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 dun. That's it. All right, so I'm gonna tell you the $70,000 story and the $115,000 story, and I kind of already hinted at the $27,000 per day story being written today. So the $70,000 story went like this. Um, I talked to my dad one day. I was about 21, 22 years old. He was like, I was like, Dad, how much money do I need to make to take care of this baby and this young lady? And my dad was like, well, a man can live comfortably off of $70,000 a year. I was like, okay. And so subconsciously in my mind, I thought 70,000 was a lot of money. So a few years go by, I get into insurance, I start trying to make a little money, start making good money in Houston, move back to New Orleans, just failed. Took a job at State Farm and started making good money there. And I remember telling Miss Wendy Walker, I need to make at least $70,000. I was at least smart enough to say at least $70,000. And lo and behold, a few years into it, I hit $74,000. And I was like, oh my God, I made $74,000. I'm the man. Everybody else is trying to make 40. I'm making 70 something. Ooh, I'm killing it. I was still behind on my bills, still owed a lot of people money. So the 70,000 wasn't enough. So I said, well, let's bump it up then. Skip 80. Let's get to 115,000. So I looked at all my bills and how much money I wanted to make, and I said I need to make at least $115,000. And I remember telling Mr. Reggie Glass at that time, I was like, how much money I want to make. I said I want to make about $115,000. And he was like, well, I don't know anybody in that capacity that's making that type of money. And so I continued on my other business ventures in combination with my business ventures at State Farm. And, this year I'm set on target to hit that number or a little bit more. I've already hit the six-figure mark. And through my business ventures and my 9 to 5 job, and that kind of inspired me to actually shoot this video and be inspiring to other people that it doesn't matter what the number is, you're going to find a way to actually make it happen. And that's why I'm bold enough to say that, the $27,000 is $27,700 per day story, actually, and I don't mind sharing that with you guys because I believe that is true. So, are you ready to learn nature's secrets of how you can change that? If not, I mean, that's totally fine with me. I understand you just want to keep things the way that they are and you're happy and there's no real reason to change. But if you do want to change that, I want you to listen very closely. Nature will give you whatever you ask it for if you know how to ask it and you align with the laws of nature. It's really that simple. So this is part 1 of 2. So there's a second part where we actually go in there and we replace all these things that we thought was true with things that are much better, in my opinion, in the area of making money.